I'm Rich Capparela with radio station KUSC, where you can hear broadcast concerts by the Pacific Symphony. I just want to do a little bit of a bio here. Carl has led orchestras in Asia, Central America, South America, Europe, 10 years with the Costa Rica Orchestra, the National Symphony, a 27-year relationship with the Symphony Orchestra Wuppertal in Germany, and was named honorary guest conductor for life. He's been general music director of the Komische Oper in Berlin, general music director and chief conductor of the German National Theater and Staatskapelle in Weimar, Germany. So the first question is, yeah, but what have you accomplished? And 35 years with Pacific Symphony.
Well, you know, a few years back, I decided not to live my life any longer by years, months, days, hours, because I guess maybe because there was not enough room on the cake for the number of appropriate candles. But I decided that it would be better for me to start living my life by deeds and accomplishments. So now whatever I do is not about time, because as we all know, time is really one of the, I mean, when we talk about the most valuable currency, I always put time at the very top, because everybody's got a bank account, but the problem is nobody knows how much is in the account. So you have to spend every cent at every moment wisely. So I really think more about what I'm doing, how it's affecting others, and what that accomplishes. And if it doesn't accomplish something that is better or makes people better or helps people out, then I try not to do it. I'd let somebody else do it, because I want to spend my bank account just as wisely and as efficiently as I possibly can. So yes, I've been very blessed, you know, to have all these wonderful positions, and of course 35 years with a single orchestra, that's pretty unprecedented. Not unprecedented, but fairly unprecedented, especially in today's world, when there's a lot of exchange and changes going on with music directorships across the country and across the world. But it's certainly been a great gift given to me and offered to me, not just to me, but to my wife and my children. And it's a chapter in our lives that we don't take an instant for granted, and we feel very blessed and very thankful. But I'm also a constant teacher. I have never not taught. My first job was 23 years old. I was a trumpet teacher, conductor of the orchestra, conductor of the wind ensemble, and I programmed one opera a year. And it was at Southern Illinois University at Edwardsville, right across the river from St. Louis. And so through my whole career, whether I've been in the professional arena or I've always had one foot in the academic arena. As a matter of fact, my relationship with the USC Thornton School of Music is almost 30 years. It's almost as long as being music director here. As a matter of fact, on Sunday, the Thornton Symphony Orchestra and the Pacific Symphony are joining together side by side to play a performance of Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique that you're going to hear this evening. So teaching has been very important, and as a matter of fact, almost every conductor that I have the highest esteem and regard for and respect for have also been incredible teachers. I mean, let's just start with Leonard Bernstein. I mean, how many of you learned about classical music through the early broadcasts on his TV shows? And by the way, those were prime time shows. Those weren't at 2 a.m. in the morning when nobody was awake. Those were prime time TV. I mean, Kurt Masur was a great teacher. Seiji Ozawa was a great teacher. My teacher, I mean, I'm hoping that I'm here because he was also a great teacher. I felt he was. So great teaching is really a great part of, or an important part of being a music director today. And it's certainly something that I know how much it's meant to me. As a matter of fact, sitting in the Pacific Symphony tonight will be any number of students that played under me, including the composer Kinji Bunch, we're performing The Devil's Box. Reminded me in 1993 he played under my directorship when we did a 75th anniversary tour for the anniversary of Leonard Bernstein. We were in a lot of different countries in Europe. So teaching is really important.
Wow. And also, you spoke about Bernstein. Didn't he have a nickname for you?
Yeah, he did. I mean, it's pretty common knowledge now, but you know, he really didn't meet that many conductors from Texas. And when you think of Texas, you think of cowboys. I mean, I never looked like a cowboy, but his association with me and Texas and conducting, so his sort of pet name or endearing name for me was Cowboy. And one night about, well, I guess it was in the morning, after a concert in Vienna, we were in a little Stube in Vienna, and I kept calling him Mr. Bernstein, and finally he goes, Cowboy, if you call me Mr. Bernstein one more time, and he kind of leapt across the table and kind of mocked, choked me. He says, you've got to come up with another name. So I just couldn't call him Lenny. So many snotty-nosed kids would run up to Mr. Bernstein and go, Lenny, Lenny, and I'm going, Josh, you don't have any idea who you're talking to. You shouldn't be able to, or even feel that you have the right to do that. So I called him Mr. B, because I could never call him anything but Mr. or Maestro. Mr. B was his name that I came up with, that he accepted. Because in my life, I always feel like I need people in my life, regardless of how old I am or what I think I've accomplished or what maybe other people have written that I've accomplished. I need Misters and Mrs. and doctors and these types of people in my life to continue look up to. Because even though people are looking up to me, there are these people that I cherish so dearly. And so even to this day, I would never call Mr. Bernstein Lenny. I don't think I've ever referred to him as Lenny. And even his mother didn't. I mean, on his last concert, August 19th, 1990, I sat holding her hand. She was 93, by the way. And nobody knew it was actually going to be the last concert of his life. And we had a camera like this one right on his face because he was so ill and had such a difficult time breathing and negotiating. And she just grabbed my hand and she goes, do you think Lynn is going to make it? Lynn was her name for him. And I go, I think Mr. B's going to make it. And of course, he did make it. But even at 72 and 93, she was the mother of Lynn, Mr. Bernstein, the great maestro Leonard Bernstein.
And you actually diminish your role here when you're talking about the 35 years. You are, I believe, the longest running American-born conductor of an orchestra Tier 1, which is to say, I mean, when you joined this orchestra, the budget was something like $2 million. Now it's, $24 million, which puts it in the same league as Boston, Los Angeles, places like that. So you have seen enormous growth in this orchestra during your tenure. It doesn't necessarily mean that's going to happen. Why do you think this orchestra has become a major force as it is now in 2024?
Well, right where that fountain is, there used to be a little mound of dirt. I know some of you might remember, it's a little hill. And my conducting teacher, whose name is Dr. Decloux, was born in Lucerne, studied in Vienna, heard Strauss conduct his own works, was very close friends with Bruno Walter, was a protege and assistant to Toscanini. I mean, this incredible background. He stood right on that hill after looking around, and this building was not there, the museum was not there, SCR was there, and he looked at me, pulled me very close, and in a very, very stern way, he says, my dear young man, you have the greatest opportunity afforded to an American music director today, anywhere in the United States. Get to work. He says, look around you. You have everything that it takes to make a great orchestra here. This should be your life goal. And I hadn't really thought about it in those terms, but he envisioned that, as did Henry Segerstrom. And so the budget, of course, if you look at 46 years, I mean, when you mention New York Philharmonic, Boston Symphony, LA Philharmonic, those orchestras are hundreds of years old, over 100. We're 46 years. So I would say that in 46 years, what has been accomplished here has been nothing less than miraculous. But it's not because of me. I mean, for God's sake, this is because of you, this community. This is because the dedication of our board members and our subscribers and people like yourselves who are here sitting and really realizing the importance of classical music in your life and the importance of having a symphony orchestra that brings it to you, not buying it. I mean, anybody can buy a symphony orchestra. You can buy one, it comes in, and it'll take our $150,000 or $250,000 out of Orange County the very next morning. I'm not opposed to that. We need that. Like I need misters and doctors. Pacific Symphonies need Vienna Philharmonics and Concertgebouws and New York Philharmonics and LA Philharmonics that we also look up to, because these are the orchestras that are a watermark. These are the orchestras that we want to emulate. And I don't mean emulate in every way, but to attain that kind of artistic integrity over that long of a span, that's something. That's something. But more importantly about the arts, it says something about the community. I remember in 2006, when we played our last concert in Vienna, the review came out and said, I don't know where Orange County, California is, but wherever it is, it's obvious that they care about classical music and their orchestra. What a compliment for all of us. I mean, I don't know where it is, but wherever it is, it's obvious that the people there understand the importance and really, really do take care of their symphony orchestra. And so it's a family affair. And just to, I guess I'm rambling. Am I rambling, or am I saying that? You realize what is going on here. We have the golden opportunity. Look, hand in hand, Orange County, a young county, Pacific Symphony, a young orchestra. We've been holding hands with one another for a long time, for 46 years. And we've grown together. The orchestra's grown, Orange County's grown, culture has grown, so many things have grown. As long as we stay in sync with one another. In other words, that our partnership is one mutually agreed upon, is one that you're not forcing us to be something we can't be, and we're not asking you to support something that you didn't ask for. As long as we stay wholesome together as a partner, we can continue growing together. The point of the matter is that because we've had this really unified feeling of one another, that we're healthy, Orange County's healthy, and the cultural aspect of this beautiful life we live here has grown, developed, and flourished. I mean, if you could imagine, the orchestras that get in trouble, the communities that get in trouble, are the community that wants to marry an orchestra, but the orchestra hasn't said, I love you yet. Or the other way around. The orchestra wants to marry you, but we want to marry you, but the community says, yeah, but we haven't really kissed one another yet. You understand the metaphors I'm bringing. We are hand in hand. And as long as we stay that way, we can remain healthy. You can remain proud of Pacific Symphony.
It has been 35 years, and you obviously had a dream when you took this position, and you talked about the fact that you were told this is a chance of a lifetime. And so you've been able to stay with this orchestra for 35 years. Along the way, especially early on, there must have been times where you just did a face palm because of something that happened. What are some of the strangest things that you can recall in these years that just made you think, this is show business?
Well, if I don't answer that question, I hope you're not angry at me. No. Because the fact of the matter is, if you look at all the great orchestras, if you think of Concertgebouw in Amsterdam, Bernard Haitink was there years long, decades long. If you look at the Berlin Philharmonic, Herbert von Karajan was there a long time. If you look at the Philadelphia Orchestra, Eugene Ormandy was there. Kusovitsky was in Boston. George Zell was in Cleveland. Fritz Reiter was in Chicago. Maurice Abravanel was in Utah. What he'd created in Utah was nothing less than miraculous as well. I mean, the point being is that early stages of orchestras' lives have been under the leadership of a single person that had spent an inordinately long period of time with one philosophy, one set of goals, one set of consciousness, one set of honesty, one set of principles. And so in 46 years, Pacific Symphony's had 2 conductors, 2 music directors, and 2 presidents. So the orchestra's philosophy, our opening concert is a perfect example. That was exactly the same program I programmed in that hall 35 years ago, with one small exception. We did a world premiere of William Kraft back in 1990, and this time we did a program. We opened the program with a work that was written for the 25th anniversary of the orchestra by our first composer in residence. Other than that, it was exactly the same program. Of course, different soloists. But the fact that it remained exciting and relevant 35 years later showed me we've been on the right track since the beginning. We have been doing the right things so often. And I will tell you, there are so many moments, pivotal, historical moments that I can remember, where the board of directors made bold, absolutely heroic decisions about this orchestra, sometimes stretching the organization as far as it could stretch without bending or breaking. I mean, for instance, in 2000, we said we're going to have a concert hall, and in 2006, but we've never played a concert outside of Orange County. How can that be? How do we know that this silver slipper is going to match the foot of Cinderella, this Pacific Symphony? I said, we've got to go to Europe. We've got to put this orchestra under the litmus test of real hard critics, firm critics, audiences that expect the highest level. We went there. That's a heavy cost, but they understood the importance of that. We had 23 reviews, 9 concerts, not a single negative word from anyone, including 5 reviews from Frankfurt in the Alte Oper, where we played a concert there. 5 separate reviewers who had reviewed me before, not so friendly sometimes, I must say. But the point being is that we came back, and that same time, we played at the American Symphony Orchestra League National Convention, which was up in Disney Hall. I mean, it's really important. 2018, we went to China. We also did a PBS special, and we sold out Carnegie Hall again. So there have been so many moments in our life that just gave us hope, gave us motivation, inspired us to think there is no proverbial ceiling over the head of Pacific Symphony. We haven't seen it. It hasn't materialized, but it could have on many different levels and different moments in the orchestra's life. The board refused to let it happen. You refused to let that ceiling start to appear over our head. We've done this together. I've been just the greatest honor to have been at the helm of part of it, just the part of it. But almost, I think my biggest job wasn't appointed to me. In a way, I feel after this long of a relationship with you, I feel like I've become sort of an artistic or a musical conscience for Orange County. You understand what I'm getting at here? It's not just what I want to do, because I've never looked at it that way. It's like, what's good for us? What's good for you? Sometimes I give you what you want. That's no question. Sometimes I give you what you love. And sometimes I give you what you need. You know, everybody has to have spinach and broccoli in their life. It's good for you. And, you know, it spreads our imagination. It challenges our heart, challenges our mind. So it's just an incredible moment. And the bravery and the dedication of the musicians. There are still musicians in the orchestra that will be playing for you tonight that preceded me. They're not many, about half a dozen, but they're there. And they've been there for. There are 2 board members that are still on the board that were here. One before me and one Ron Hansen. That's John Evans, who's our just immediate past board chair, and Ron Hansen, who was offered a position on the board or joined the board the same night I was given music directorship of Pacific Symphony. So that just shows you the longevity. And there's a word that I've been using quite a lot, because I've been reflecting on how we got here, because that's kind of what you're asking. And I think the word boils down to one thing: loyalty. Loyalty. It's an underused, underestimated word, but I will tell you something. When you've got loyalty, you've got strength. When you've got loyalty, you've got a partner with, it's so important, because most of the important things of life are things that you feel with your heart, not things that you see with your eye. Values, honesty, integrity, trust, respect, those are not things you see. Those are things you feel. So you see them with your heart. And this is how the entire Pacific Symphony board, its staff, this is how we operate. We're constantly with our finger on your heart, on your pulse, to know what it is and how is it that we can take the next step together, whatever that might be. Carnegie Hall was huge. That program didn't work so well here. But I'm sorry, friends, I didn't program that for you. I programmed that for New York. I programmed that for the Carnegie Hall subscribers, for the New York critics, not for what we do here. Nothing wrong with what we do here. But I realized what would be best for Orange County at this moment would be to go to New York with a New York style program. Same with when we went to Europe. Same when we went to China. So, next question.
Sure. Well, you talked about...
He's got 7 pages of questions here.
I've got one done. You talk about spinach and the rest, which brings up a question. And one of the reasons I believe the orchestra has been so successful and has such loyalty from its audience and board and the rest is because you've been able to achieve a balance that some orchestras don't have, which is to say the old and the new, the familiar and the unfamiliar, and challenging your audience, but just enough. What goes into, what informs your programming decisions and has over these many years now?
Well, first of all, I characterize the musicians that you hear on that stage that sit in the Pacific Symphony. This is really virtuosity and versatility. So any given week, we could play the ballet, we could play an opera, we could do a pops, we could be on our Symphony on the Go truck in someone's park in their hometown. We could be in the park concerts in Mission Viejo or Irvine, all of our dear friends, and we could be outside playing the film score to Harry Potter. And each and every one of those musical genres and musical settings, the musicians of Pacific Symphony put 100% of their talents into everything. There's nothing that doesn't deserve everybody's number one and top effort and attention. And that includes new music. I mean, new music is so important. We're going to be an orchestra that's going to live most of its life in the 21st century, not the 20th century. So we have to be not breathing the fumes of other orchestras. That's when I said a little bit ago, I didn't mean that we had to emulate orchestras around we have to find out who we are and who you want us to be and what we could be that would be best for us. We're in a warm weather climate. This is different than Cleveland. We don't have a downtown like Philadelphia. You know, we don't have the Music Academy or the Kimmel Center. We have a different lifestyle here. Everybody has to be in a car or two, and everybody has to, you know, it's a completely different kind of environment. So how we integrate us, our lifestyle in this environment with classical music is what keeps us relevant in your lives. If we got so far out of your life cycle and out of your life desires and wishes and wants, we would be alone. We would just literally be isolated. So our job relevance is huge all across the country, but what's relevant in Cincinnati might not be relevant here. But it's a great orchestra. Nothing against that orchestra. It's just that we need to figure out what we're going to be when we grow up. You know, we're not yet 50 years old, but we're headed in that direction. But our future's bright. And we have a lot of momentum, and we have a lot of goodwill, and I hope you agree with me. I don't think the orchestra's ever sounded better. I mean, it's just really, I mean, opening night concerts, we've done Beethoven 7 before, we've done that whole program before, but it just felt different. There's a certain excitement that comes off of that stage because they know who they're playing for and why.
And you were talking about the flexibility of the orchestra. Do you think that has anything to do with the fact that we've got new music being played by many of these musicians all the time in studio because of the film industry? Does that inform the sound of Pacific Symphony?
Not the sound, but the attitude. Not the sound, but the attitude. Because Hollywood sounds very different. Most of the sounds you hear in the movie is not what the orchestra is doing when they're recording it. That's all done in a room with guys with a lot of knobs and levers and things like that. But the versatility of what they do and their willingness to just approach any piece of music, that is not true of every orchestra. I mean, there are orchestras in this country that don't have pops concerts, that don't have a pop series, they don't have a summer series, that only stick with one or two, that don't do opera the way we do. So yes, our musicians are open. Every composer who has ever come to have a world premiere or to work with us, including Kinji Bunch, who was here last night with us, last night at the rehearsal, they're amazed at the dedication, at the absolute attention to detail of everything that they've composed. And Frank Tekeli was our first composer in residence. William Balk, the list is quite long. And very illustrious. Several Nobel Prize winners, several Pulitzer Prize winners, Pulitzer Prize winners, excuse me. So, it definitely has the fact that our musicians are sitting, not a lot, not all, but many of our musicians are sitting in Hollywood studios playing music that was just written yesterday or just changed in the last break,
Yeah, that's always amazed me. I've said it in a few sessions where the conductor will say, talk to the composer and say, okay, you know what? Let's transpose it down a third. Okay, and, how do you do that? How can you be that? Anyway, but you mentioned opera, and it must have been mother's milk for you when, because of the absence of Opera Pacific, this orchestra started doing an annual semi-staged opera. If you don't know this, by the way, folks, Wagner's Ring Cycle is, without breaks, about 16 hours, right? Is it Weimar that you actually conducted the Ring from memory?
No, I didn't do it by memory.
No?
My life was too complicated.
Okay.
But I probably could have, but I didn't. But the point being is that, it's like another genre, whether it's pops, children's concerts. This weekend we have a children's concert. Yesterday they had a rehearsal. They're going to have a Saturday morning. They're going to do the program twice. Same dedication. And they'll be here Saturday night playing for our audiences with the same degree of energy and motivation and goodwill. So, it's a tireless group. They work hard. They're dedicated. And they're proud of what we're accomplishing. I hope you are, because we are on stage proud and we have high standards for ourselves. And they keep getting higher. It's like when you taste the high fruit, that the low fruit no longer tastes as good when you get into the higher fruit. So you're willing to do the extra work just for that extra sense of gratification and accomplishment.
About opera. You're ending this season in a huge way with the, I guess you could call it the overture to the Ring, the only 2.5 hour long Das Rheingold. Why did you choose to end this season with that big a piece?
Well, I don't know if you've been reading, but there have been in the last maybe 2 months, probably a dozen plus performances of Das Rheingold, the first opera of the Ring Cycle, being done around the world. It just was done in Dallas. It's done all over. It's as Rich said, it's the first opera of the Ring Cycle. It's the shortest. It's only 2.5 hours without a break. So it fits in with our 3-hour time zone. Even that I'm thinking about. Which operas fit into the life expectancy of a classical symphony orchestra? It's not 5.5 hours. It's not Siegfried. It's not Goethe Dämmerung. It's not even Don Carlos or some of the longer one, but it's something we could fit in within a 3-hour time frame. But we've only done one opera that wasn't in Italian we did Carmen, and then we did The Magic Flute. And we did that in German, plus the dialogue was in English, but we really have only done works of operatic works with composers whose last name ends in an I, Verdi and Puccini. So we really do have to branch out a little bit. And the music of Richard Wagner is so important. It's a monument. So in a 3.5-year period, I conducted ring operas, all 4 of them in a couple of cycles. And I realized how it changed my life, how nourishing it was. An experience of a Mount Everest, or it was climbing the highest peak, or swimming swimming the English Channel. It was a real feat of mind and matter and energy and strength and concentration for me, for the singers, and so when we approach works like this, it's a growing experience for the orchestra. It's a growing experience. It's an expanding experience for you, and it's one that I think that we all will welcome, embrace, and really gain from. And also, it's just incredible music. I mean, it's just some of the greatest music. I mean, to think that Richard Wagner wrote the libretto, designed the sets, directed the opera, conducted the opera, and then built the hall so his operas could be played in that hall only in Bayreuth. I mean, what a giant. What a giant. And so I should tell you that after spending 3.5, almost 4 years with Wagner, I did my last ring cycle, and then I was leaving Weimar to go to Berlin, and Susan goes, "Carl, you're really quick to agitation. You're really on edge all the time." And I think, she's right. I don't even know why. And I realized I was addicted to Wagner. I had drank the Kool-Aid, and I was, for the first time in 3 years, I was without Wagner in my life, and I was going through literal musical withdrawals. That kind of incredible musical experience had just all of a sudden finished and vanished with the immolation scene of Götterdämmerung. And I didn't have it anymore, and I had to find a way of replenishing that part of my musical soul.
Carl St.Clair, 35 years music director, Pacific Symphony. Thank you so much for joining us tonight. We look forward to tonight and the rest of this season.
Sure, I as well. And as I've said a couple of times, everything that I do this year is just one more opportunity for me to say thank you. And just to say how much this all means to me. I mean, it's, as I told a group, it's nice to have these kind of parties while I'm still here, rather than to find out that you had a party because I left, So it's been a great thing. And one last comment that I want you to all understand and maybe reflect on. Early on in my tenure, I started using the term family, because I see Pacific Symphony family not just being the board and the board of counselors and the musicians, but it really is you as well. You are a very, very important, maybe among the most, if there is an important part to a family, but you are definitely part of Pacific Symphony family, and we respect and thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Carl St.Clair, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you.